I'm April Holloway with Holloway Legal Immigration Services, here to answer your questions on immigration for this week. Remember, you can submit your questions on Instagram or Facebook at Holloway Legal DMV. So let's go ahead and get right into the first question. I am planning on getting married in December. How soon can I file a petition for my spouse? There is no waiting period. As soon as you get married, the same day, the next day, you can submit your application. However, you do want to keep in mind that your application will be evaluated on whether or not they believe you have a true and bona fide marriage. So either you're going to wait and file until you gather up evidence showing your joint financial resources, to show photos of your weddings, other things that prove that you're in a bona fide relationship, or you're going to submit your application and then continue gathering those things so that you can take them to the interview with you or submit them in response to if you get a request for additional evidence. So there's no waiting period. It's up to you and how much document you have and when you want to move forward with the petition. Let's get into question number 2. Which one is faster, spousal visa or K-1 visa? Okay, so if you are a U.S. citizen and you have a partner who is an immigrant, you have the option to either petition for them as a fiancé or to get married and then petition for them as a spouse. There are pluses and minuses to those different categories, and I say don't make the decision of which one you're going to do based on which one is faster, because there are just too many variables that go into determining which one is quote-unquote faster. If the embassy consulate suddenly has a backup, if USCIS experiences delays, there really isn't a way for you to comfortably say that one is faster than the other. Instead, you want to make your decision based on where do you want to have your wedding? When do you want to have your wedding? Who do you want to be able to come to the wedding? What financial resources do you guys plan on using to live together, to have a wedding? What future vacations or trips do you want to take together? Those kind of things should be more of an influence on whether you do the fiancé visa or the spousal visa. If you do the spousal visa, then your spouse arrives in the United States as a resident and they can immediately begin to work. However, if you do the fiancé visa, when they arrive, you get married within 90 days, which is where the title of the show 90 Day Fiancé comes from. And then they have to apply for adjustment of status. So the person is going to end up being out of work for maybe 6 months to a year before they actually are able to start contributing financially to the household. So for some people, that's more important that you arrive ready to work or able to work as opposed to arriving as a fiancé. Some people choose to do a fiancé petition first because they don't know if they want to get married yet. But honestly, 90 days is not enough time to decide if you want to get married. It's really just the time that's supposed to be making wedding preparations. So again, my advice is, in your personal life, what is better for you, the fiancé visa or the spousal visa? Don't think about which one is faster. Moving right along into question 3. I am a U.S. citizen. If I apply for financial aid for college, will it be a problem when I petition my spouse? No. You are a U.S. citizen. You are entitled to continue using all benefits that are available for U.S. citizens. However, you do want to be able to meet the poverty guidelines when you petition your spouse. You do have to show, if they're here in the U.S., you will submit the forms when you petition for them. If they're outside of the country, then you'll do it at the consular processing stage. And you'll have to show, based on whatever the IRS guidelines are for that year, that you're above the poverty level for that time period. So that is something to take in consideration. You are not barred from seeking financial aid, but you will have to show that you make enough money to support your spouse. Question number 4. Because of my health, I can't travel to my fiance's country. Is there any exception to get a fiancé visa? Okay, so what I think this question is referring to is the person A fiancé visa requires that you have met in person at least one time in the 2 years prior to the petition being filed. So I think what this person is referring to is that they've gotten engaged online, or maybe it was an arranged marriage, and they're not going to have an opportunity to meet face to face before they want to file that fiancé visa. So there are two exceptions to that meeting in person. One is if there's a long-standing cultural or social practice that prevents it in the country where the person's from. Or the other category is if meeting in person would cause an extreme hardship to the U.S. citizen petitioner. So if your health conditions are such that it is impossible for you to travel, you could possibly apply for that exception. You'll want to show your medical records as well as maybe an opinion from your medical provider on what effects it would have for you to try and travel. One thing I do want you to consider, if the person is unable to come to the United States for lack of a visa, or if the flight is just too far for you to go where their home country is, you could consider meeting in a third country. You don't have to meet the person in their home country for it to count as you meeting in person for purposes of the fiancé visa. There are people who apply for the fiancé visa who have never been to their partner's home country because they always meet in a third country for a number of reasons. So that is something that you can try and look into. Question number 5. I am 19 years old. Can I still qualify for special immigrant juvenile status? So that depends. Different states have different ages for special immigrant juvenile status. So let me back up just a little bit. Special immigrant juvenile status is an option for people to be on a pathway to residency if they have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents. So it starts off with the state court having to declare the person in custody of the court and appoint someone for them to live with to be their guardian. And that could be one of the parents, it could be an aunt, an uncle, it could be someone who's not even related to them. So in some states that goes up to age 21, such as in Maryland, but in some states it only goes up to age 18, such as in Virginia. So depending on what state you're in as a 19-year-old is going to dictate whether or not you qualify for the state requirements to get that first step done of special immigrant juvenile status. Now beyond that, you also have to be someone who is dependent on another person. So if you're already working on your own, if you're living by yourself, it would be very difficult for the court to declare that you need to be in the custody of another person. But if you are still in school, if you are still depending on someone else to provide you with food and housing, then it is possible, then you would be able to, at 19 years old, still establish that you need a custody order. And the last question for today, let's see. I do not understand consular processing. Can you explain it? Yes. Consular processing is unnecessarily tricky. So as opposed to people who are applying for residency inside the United States, which is called adjustment of status, consular processing is when you're applying for residency from outside of the United States at an American consulate in your home country or another country where you have residency. The process starts by whatever your approved petition is being sent to that consulate so that you can begin submitting your documents online to request an interview. Each separate consulate does have their own procedures on exactly how they do this. Some consulates allow you to go into a scheduler and schedule your own interview. Other consulates require that you upload all of your documents, and then once they review and approve them, then they send you an interview notice. So at that point, it's important to have an attorney who understands exactly how the consulate is going to work in the country where you are going to be having your interview. So once you follow their guidelines, whether it's to upload your documents first or request an interview first, you pay your fees, then you go to the consular interview. In the interview, they ask you questions. For example, if it's a marriage petition, they'll ask you questions to confirm that the marriage is a bona fide marriage. They'll ask you all of your history to confirm your parents, your siblings, all of your past travel, if you've applied for or been denied for any immigration benefits in the past. They review all of those things. And then again, after the interview is over, different consulates have different procedures as well. Some of them will keep your passport and return it to you once they make a decision on whether to grant your visa or not. Some of them will immediately stamp your passport and to tell you to come back the next week to get your stamp. After your passport is stamped, it will tell you exactly how long you have before you to enter the United States. Once you enter the United States, then your green card is mailed to you at the address that was previously provided, so you want to make sure they have an up-to-date address. Between the time that your visa is approved and your entry into the United States receipt of your green card, you do not want to make any life changes that change your application. Do not get married during that time. If you're coming in on a family petition for like an unmarried child under 21 or over 21, no changes. Everything needs to be exactly the same on your application when the Customs and Border Patrol agent reviews it. Consular processing can be a tricky process, so you do want to make sure that you have an attorney who is able to explain it to you step by step and to guide you. Thank you so much for your time today. Remember to submit your immigration questions on Instagram or Facebook at Holloway Legal DMV, and have a great week.